Good morning, everybody. Oh, I'm so happy it's Friday and we're here together again as a community. Welcome to the Psychedelic Revelations podcast, where we explore the many sides of psychedelics and altered states of consciousness, bridging science, spirituality, business, ethics, history, and so much more. Our community's given us the tagline, "We go there," because we aren't afraid to go deep into sometimes controversial topics. And the topics that we are discussing today might fall into that category. Today's topic is the truth about ketamine therapy, ketamine addiction. For those of you who are new with us this week, this is part 2 of a series. Last week was the truth about ketamine therapy with our guests Helen Loshney and Madison Knobs. And I encourage you to explore that conversation as well. This is a place where we dive deep into all sides of stories, all sides of what's going on in the psychedelic world, and have balanced viewpoints and honest conversations. My name is Dana Harvey, and I'm one of your hosts today, and I'll be leading the conversation with our guest and dear friend, Alison Crosthwaite, who I'll introduce shortly, for this really critical conversation around ketamine addiction. I myself am a psychedelics educator, facilitator, and ceremonialist. I'm the founder of the Flourish Academy, where I offer transformational coaching, events, retreats, online microdosing programs, and sound healing. And I'm also the lead facilitator for Gathering Groups, which is a 12-week psilocybin program, small groups online, 8 weeks of preparation, a retreat, and 4 weeks of integration. I'd love to introduce my co-host, Wendy, if she's ready to come on camera. Wendy spends a lot of her time with us behind the scenes, taking care of our tech and our systems. But Wendy, I'd love to turn it over to you before we get started.
Hello, everybody. Just want to say hi and glad to be here. And I just want to give a little personal thank you to Alison for showing up for this important conversation. So
Yeah.
I'll go back to the back.
Okay, back to the back. Before we begin, just a couple of reminders. First of all, this conversation is for harm reduction and education only. Please don't construe anything as medical, mental health, legal, financial, or any other kind of advice. And secondly, just a reminder or knowledge, if you're new to this, that the format of this podcast. So this is a community conversation. It's really important, I find, to have community in these spaces and to be able to share our stories, to connect with one another, and to ask our questions. So for the first 45 minutes or so, I'll have like a podcast style interview with Alison. And after that, we open it up to the community. So I encourage you after that to join in the conversation, to come off mute and off and on to camera if it feels comfortable and safe for you. And yeah, be part of our community and have this beautiful balanced conversation. So before we really dive into it, I'm going to lead us through our usual grounding and gratitude, just a chance to actually really become present here with each other. And I would love to invite you, if it feels good, if it feels safe and comfortable, to close your eyes or to just lower your gaze and just allow the vibration to wash through you as you focus your attention on your breath. Noticing your exhales, your contractions, your expansions. Perhaps feeling your breath deepen as you become present in this moment. The day so far doesn't matter. We don't need to think about what comes next. We are here in community together. Turning your attention to your body and just becoming aware of your body. Perhaps where you're making contact with the chair or the floor. Just scanning your body to see if there's anywhere that feels tense, that might invite some softening and just breathing into that space. Maybe relaxing your jaw, letting your shoulders drop from your ears, your tongue drop from the roof of your mouth. Being very present in this moment as we turn our attention towards gratitude. It might feel good to put a hand on your heart or bring a smile to your face as you just take a moment to tap into your own personal gratitude, things you can be grateful for in this moment. And then as we collectively turn our gratitude down to Mother Earth, who holds us in the belly of her womb, gifts us with sacred plant medicines to expand our consciousness, to heal and to grow. We're grateful for our elders, our ancestors, those who've come before us, and the indigenous people of all our lands who have over time shared the beauty and the spirit of these plants with us. So with presence in our bodies and gratitude in our hearts, when it feels right, I invite you to come back to join into this conversation with us today. Oh, thank you for joining me in that. I really feel ready for this conversation, grounded and excited to welcome you, Alison, as our guest. And I'm just going to set the stage a little bit for those of you who maybe haven't listened to the first episode, for those of you who are new to this. In our last episode, we explored the clinical promise of ketamine-assisted therapy, the safeguards, the preparation, the integration, the standards required for safe practice. And today is part 2 in this series. So today we turn to something that's far less discussed publicly, which is ketamine addiction. And not just theoretically or statistically alone, but I'm so grateful to have Alison here to talk to us about her personal story. Ketamine is not a villain, nor is it a miracle. It's a powerful substance, and power without honesty is dangerous. That same substance that can interrupt suicidal ideation can also create dependency, and that complexity demands maturity in this space. As ketamine becomes more accessible through clinics, telehealth, nightclub culture, and underground scenes, the line between therapeutic use and compulsive use can blur quickly. Ketamine is now one of the most commonly used club drugs in many regions around the world. It's increasingly present in overdose toxicology reports, often mixed with other substances. And it's showing up more frequently in addiction treatment settings and emergency departments. So I just want to be clear that this conversation is not anti-ketamine. It is pro-honesty. So if you're currently using ketamine, prescribed or otherwise, please know that this episode is not meant to shame you. It's meant to expand awareness and to reduce harm. So today we're going to hear what addiction actually looks like, how fast it can escalate, and what it can cost. And I find myself, just even as I'm reading these notes that I wrote before this show, almost tearing up at the gravity of this conversation. Because of how ketamine has both saved lives and cost lives. And so I'm really grateful, Alison, that you are prepared to share your story to shed some light on this today. I have known Alison for a number of years, starting first as a sister in the medicine world, someone that I shared professionally with. And through that, we became friends. And through that, I then was quite close with Alison through some of her struggles with ketamine addiction. And so this is close to my heart personally as a good friend as well. So Alison, you have had a very colorful career, which included a time of serving medicine. And what I'd love to kick off with is just, first of all, as we always do, just giving you the opportunity to also express gratitude to any people or anything that has, really supported you in being who you are today and showing up in the world the way you do today. And then just start telling us a little bit about your backstory, starting back in your finance trading days and your psychotherapy, and take us along on your journey.
Well, I am very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to be alive. Um, I'm grateful to have this conversation with all of you alongside you, Dana. It's not easy to stand by someone. Um, the mirror of it in the psychedelic community, I lost a lot of contacts, and you were one of the people who more than stood with me, helped me. And I'm grateful for that, very grateful. And I'm grateful we get to do this together because I couldn't do this alone. I, I'm fine, but I'm also nervous. And I want to bring gratitude and name my cat here, 2K in particular. He stayed with me through my whole addiction. He was the only being who seemed not to find it distasteful in any way. He loved me through the whole thing. My dog had to be put in daycare. Nobody wanted to be with me, but this guy did, and here he is for our conversation. So I will name the beauty and specialness of 2K. So I mean, there's so much I could say. I'll just give you the little overview. Um, I do come from a background of a lot of trauma. Um, but the first 15 years of my career were as an equity trader in derivatives and equities. Um, Chicago, New York, Toronto, and then global. And so a very, very outward facing, driven, put yourself together. And then underneath, things weren't working so well. Fault lines were showing. And I entered psychotherapy and I found a beautiful psychotherapist who had beautiful training. And I ended up training in her lineage. I mean, I call it a lineage at the school that she went to, and became a psychotherapist. So after 15 years, I got a package and decided not to go back, and became a psychotherapist. And then through some other losses in my life, more traumatic fault lines were shown, and I found my way to grandmother ayahuasca. And she was my first medicine teacher. And then over the years, studied with some traditional elders, became a psychedelic facilitator. I left my psychotherapy practice, became a psilocybin facilitator in the underground. And that's really important to note when you're looking at my career. I worked in the underground. I feel like there was one other thing that was important to say, but that may be enough to get us to the present. Mhm.
Thank you so much, Alison. When we were first talking about doing this episode, the proposed title was How I Went from Psychedelic Facilitator to Ketamine Addict in Weeks.
Right.
So let's just start there. Like, when
Yeah.
did you first try ketamine? Why did you first try ketamine? And what
Okay,
happened?
this is what I wanted to say. So I've learned a lot about addiction and about drug privilege and all kinds of things over my years, first in psychedelic facilitation, then in addiction. So I want to say this carefully, but like before I used, experienced, sat with grandmother ayahuasca, because there's so many different ways to talk about these medicines. Um, I think I had used marijuana twice in my life. I'd certainly gone in and out of alcohol in my trading days. Um, but I'd never, ever ingested any other substance. That wasn't my world. I didn't have that party time in my 20s. When I did, it was alcohol. So I think it's important just to frame that. So this has got me rethinking a lot of things, because actually grandmother ayahuasca was my gateway. She was my first gateway, which is something to think about. And I sat with really wonderful shamans, and the communities were full of people who taught me all about different ways you can use weed and MDMA and ketamine. And for a long time, I never stepped into those worlds either. But it definitely, it steps you in. And when you have an experience where you almost lose your life and you lose everything you care about, you go back and you recapitulate and you think, what was that? What was that? So it's complex, because I gained so much from my 2 years. I can't remember how many summers, but 2 real years with grandmother ayahuasca, very focused. I gained things I never thought I'd gain, and I gained a gateway. So then in December 2023, I tried MDMA for the first time, and I had always intuitively felt I was never a recreational user of psilocybin. I do not enjoy psilocybin at all. All I do is hold space and work with it for healing. And I always felt that MDMA wasn't like there was a liner for me. And I didn't even think about it too much. I just knew intuitively it wasn't a medicine I carried. I didn't have a recreational relationship to any substance. So it just wasn't there for me. And then a friend who considers himself kind of a space holder, and here we see the line go. I really see where it changed, right? From working with people who are trained, really good lineage, to someone who kind of sees himself this way. And there was another trained facilitator in the room, and 8 of us were going to do a chosen family Christmas MDMA love-in. And I thought, this sounds like a great way to have a new experience. I'd never had a bad experience with substances. Alcohol, yes, but I do have alcohol in a slightly different place because the psychedelics for me were healing. And I did have a wonderful experience with MDMA, and that's not the topic of this, but I will say I see it very differently now because it was a serious gateway for me, a very serious gateway into using the substances differently. And I didn't see a problem with it because it was great, great. Although it did have an impact on my mental health, as I'm sure many people have experienced with MDMA. It is not psilocybin. So then 4 months later, I was dating someone and we thought we would try ketamine together. And all I knew about ketamine was he had never tried it either. And all I knew was it was for healing. It was for depression. That's all I knew. I did not know it was a street drug. And this is why I'm taking the time to frame this, because people who know it as a street drug can't imagine sometimes that I didn't know that, but I came from a very different route. I came through ayahuasca. I'm 48 years old, so I legitimately didn't know. And I made a decision to try it with him, and we had a good time, and it was fine. And then a month later, like out of the blue, something traumatic happened, and it hit with my deepest triggers, and the MDMA was not helping my mental health. And I thought to myself, ketamine can help. I'm feeling terrible. Ketamine can help. And I started taking it. And I was having a bit of a fuck it moment. Use my language, but I was having one of those times in life where I'm like, I have really tried. I have really worked hard. It's very hard to support yourself sustainably in this work. It's very hard to feel supported. The medicines are unrelenting in what they're asking you to look at and experience. It's a spiritual path, not a like business one in any way. And I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Fuck it. And I just started taking a lot of it. And within 2 weeks, I was psychotic. Full on psychotic. Thinking things I had never thought before, believing things I had never believed before. And that was when actually you were coming to visit me and I ended up in the ER. 2 weeks. That was 6 weeks after my first using of it. And I feel confident sharing this as well because so many doctors, other people in the space have seen the same thing when used as a self-medicating substance. So we live in this underground world where it's like, okay, let's do some psilocybin together, which is what it is. But it's a very different thing to do some psilocybin together than to do some ketamine together.
Oh, wow. Like I I actually heard so many other topics in there
Right,
we
I
could
know.
go on to, right? It was- Okay. But I mean, what I really hear clearly is like your route into this wasn't like street drugs, party drugs, kind of got a little bit out of control, ended up addicted. It was like you were a woman in the healing world, using medicines for healing, understood about the promise of ketamine for helping support people with depression and trauma, and you approach the medicine in that way.
With
And
trust. Yeah.
pardon me,
With trust.
with
Yeah. And I
trust.
want to be clear that I don't look back in that and go, yay, that was a good decision. Like that was not a good decision. But I do
Yeah.
want to say I had trust. And I don't think I'm the only one who trusts the medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, one of the subtopics that I'm hearing is about this community of underground facilitators and medicine people dibble dabbling in all the stuff. And I don't quite understand why, but I guess just maybe because we have access to it. But and access is a whole other topic. But what I found so shocking is, I mean, like for our experience, you and I were talking regularly, like right up to because I was coming to your part of town, your part of the
Yeah.
world to visit, and we'd planned this visit, and I had no idea. And then, the morning of, like, to have this have be visiting you in ER instead of at your home, and
I
going like, what happened? Like 2 weeks, 6 weeks from the first time you tried it. I have full body goosebumps. And I've been listening to and reading a lot of personal stories around
Mhm.
ketamine addiction and the trauma it can cause in lives. And I think this is one of the biggest things is the rapid onset
Yeah,
of ketamine when it becomes a dependency.
That's right. And so this is like so all so important to say. And so that was June when you came to visit. I was in the ER. I continued to pretty much dip in and out of using and did not realize that I had a problem until Labor Day weekend. It had hijacked my brain into telling me that I knew what was best for me, and what was best for me was more ketamine. And I couldn't
Right.
find myself. And then finally, Labor Day weekend, the physical pain of the substance was so great that I couldn't take it anymore. And I took myself to detox. I mean, that was the beginning of recovery. But like I'm a smart, grounded person. I couldn't find that smart, grounded person who would have taken care of my clients. Like I couldn't find her. She was gone. The drug, like, ugh. And I don't say this as I don't have responsibility. I say this so people understand what can happen. And I'm not alone. So many people have described this happening, this takeover.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think this, smart, educated, connected demographic is one of the ones that is using ketamine more and more on their own without the education because they are hearing
Right.
about this beautiful benefits of ketamine and
Mm.
hey, it might work for me. I don't really need, and ketamine therapy is not cheap.
No,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
maybe if I can just get some ketamine, this will work for me too. So yeah, Allison, tell us what recovery's been like. Like, tell us, okay, from that June to Labor Day, what was going on there, and then from Labor Day on, just what's your story been?
So June to Labor Day was a nightmare. I mean, I had about 5 or 6 good weeks. And then I went and got some more. And I mean, I think I spent a month. I thought, so I'm not a simulation theory person, like none of those things. It's never interested me. Um, and I full on basically dropped into a belief I was stuck in a glitch in the matrix. And I walked around this house trying to figure out how to get out of it, plotting suicide, plotting overdose, like attempting to think if I'm in a movie and I'm stuck in the matrix, how do I get out? Like, just like not at all right. One day, maybe I should write or talk more about, like, it really was fascinating, some of the things I experienced, the ways I perceived the world, but utterly useless to anyone. And I just totally alone. Um, and then when I took myself to a detox and a rehab, basically because everybody was telling me to do that. And that's something I also have a lot of thoughts on. For me, neither rehab nor the 12 steps were any use at all, except that they made the people in my life happy. So I got a little more connection with them. There are so many myths around addiction. There are so many myths, like the myth you have to not use, and the sort of clean using language. That was the biggest thing I had to learn. And I just want to say one other myth before I go there. The myth of your person has to hit rock bottom, and if you support them, you're enabling them and making it worse. That is one of the worst things I experienced, because I had friends just like throw up their hands. And we're talking like not a lot of time. They wouldn't talk to me, they were out. And the lack of love was devastating because I needed help. My higher self was somewhere, and she was trying. She was trying to get through. And I do believe there's you know, I'm psychoanalytically trained. We have our death drive and we have our, um, our life drive. And like these things are working together. And I think love is not necessarily enabling for an addict. Of course, it's complicated when it's years and they live in your house, and that's one thing. But I just want to say addiction is so much more complex. We're all so different, and real love goes a long way. That was my experience. The other thing to note, the biggest thing that helped me, rehab, it can, I'm sure, be great, but I learned a lot more about drugs and got a lot of sources, and happens all the time. All the time, people upgrade from um, you know, MDMA and coke to heroin because of the connections they make in rehab. Like, you really have to be at the right place that's actually supporting you. It was not helpful to me. And I think people get so scared watching their friends go through things and their loved ones that they want help for them. So they suggest it because they want to feel better. But we just have to be realistic. There are good ones, but there's also not good ones. And to do the work, when I was in the state I was in, to do the work of figuring out what was going to help me was not going to happen. So I'm just going to put that there. But the thing that ultimately helped me the most was an alcoholic who writes on LinkedIn. I think his name is Michael Cossette. And he said, I had to get to the place where it didn't matter whether I took a drink or not. And when I read that, then I could connect to the mystical, the wisdom traditions, everything I already knew about life and challenge. And I said, yeah, it doesn't matter what everybody else is saying in my life. For me, I have to come to a relationship with myself that is not predicated on using or not using. It's like dieting. If you live your life trying not to eat, what kind of life is that? And you can't do it. Nobody can do it. We can't do it. We have to come to some other relationship with ourselves that is in love. And for me, I'm so heart centered. For me, I had to come to love, and it had to be mine because there was no love around me, or very little anyway. You were some love, Anna, but that's why you shined, because there was so little of it. There was so much fear, so much don't use. And I agree, don't use. But when your brain has been hijacked by a substance and you're at war with yourself and you feel horrible when you're using, it doesn't work. You have to say, addicts are as worthwhile human beings, using or not using. I am worthwhile because I am alive. And that's been the journey that I continue to be on, even though I'm not using.
Hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
Alison, thank you so much. I'm feeling a lot of emotions come up as you're sharing and as you're speaking, and just love the way you're putting it in context. Is like everybody's journey is different, and really the only thing that matters is the bottom line is the love. And like you said, you lose a lot of love when you are in the throes of addiction, maybe just because people don't, or they're uncomfortable. They don't know how, they don't know what, so they pull away. So, but even regardless, even if people did stick around you and did love on you, it's still going to be you finding the love for you.
That's
And
right.
I really, it really resonated when you put it in the context of like recovery for you. It's like when you use the diet analogy, like if you spend your whole life just focused on not eating, how are you going to live a life? You just have to come to a relationship that you are okay with yourself, and
That's
food
right.
will fall into it, or whatever will fall into it. And I am curious, like as a person who I've been surrounded by addiction right from my childhood. So it's not a new space for me. But I still feel at a loss very often when I'm supporting friends or family or clients with addiction. And I'm really hearing like that kind of, in your experience, that kind of tough love, wasn't the root, because what you really needed was love. And although your friends and family may have been saying, go to recovery, go to detox, do that, that wasn't really what you needed. You just needed the love from them. And I'm just wondering if you do have any like words of advice for family and friends who want to love on the person in their life who's struggling in this way and just don't know how to.
Yeah, I think so I want to say like everything's different and sometimes love is getting them to rehab. This is very complex, right? I'm just telling my story to share pieces. Just like having a difficult conversation with a best friend or a spouse. The two people closest to me got really scared and weren't able to find themselves. And I regret having hurt them in this way and scared them in this way. I know that I am a strong personality. And I think watching me dissemble so fast, I know it was terrifying for them. So this is not judgment. But what I wish they could have done is sit beside me and say, Alison, this has happened really fast. And it's not you. Like to be able to, from their body, speak their experience of what they were seeing so that I could see it in the mirror. Like that kind of witnessing. I don't know what would have happened. I'm not saying it would have saved me, but I was so lost. And I really needed, that to me would have been love. To say, I'm so scared. Like, I can't believe what's happened in 6 weeks or 8 weeks. Like, you can't work. Like, and you love your work. Like, what is happening? And unfortunately, my therapist also got scared that I lost him, which is a whole other thing. And I took all of this to mean that everybody else was lost. Like, I thought they're lost. And I got to keep going on this path. And I'm not saying they could have saved me, but I would have loved someone to speak directly to me.
Yeah, directly and compassionately.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's a fine line sometimes.
I know. And
Yeah.
it's not critique, but it
Oh
is,
yeah.
of them. Like I, they were so scared. They
Yeah.
just kept saying, go to rehab. Like it just was very hard to see. And it's like, yeah, ketamine is I have all the time in the world, please know, for the life-saving features of ketamine in the right circumstance. It's just so confusing. It's so immersive and confusing.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because, um, yeah, I think it's just honesty and truth about powerful, powerful substances, that can, as we've said, can save lives undeniably
Mhm.
and can take lives
That's
undeniably.
right. That's right.
What did addiction feel like for you? I hear a lot about the physical part of addiction, um, and how incredibly, um, like irreversible physical effects of ketamine addiction as well. So tell us, what your experience was like and what you know of, how bad this can get.
Yeah. So I am, just by the grace of Mother Earth, do not have ketamine bladder, but ketamine bladder is irreversible and causes incontinence, and there's no earthly reason why I don't have it. So that is a very serious side effect that most people talk about. I did have liver enzymes so high they couldn't believe I was functioning. I've had to have many, many tests. Thankfully, I am well, and I continue to get well, but I'm not back. And they say I will never be back to the liver function that I had before, which was great. I had tested myself just before, and it was great. I have a deviated septum from the amount of ketamine I put up my nose, which is like a humiliating, horrible thing to share, but it's true, which is affects my sinuses, my breathing, my sleep. And I will never be the same person again. I mean, if you have, I mean, even psychedelics, any psychedelic, but if you have done ketamine, I mean, I did a lot of ketamine. I experienced a lot of things and I wiped my brain. Very clean slate, which is also something I'll talk about over time. My mental health is fine. Although the recovery, one thing we didn't talk about in the recovery, suicidality like a beast. And this is something that is a known issue in ketamine recovery. I know of multiple suicides in recovery because the shame is devastating. That's what caused me to relapse when I did was the suicidality. I was like, I'm going to kill myself if I do not use this drug to at least give me some relief. And that's the calculus I'm doing. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible experience. And that the trauma of that, in a sense, of having lost my vacation, lost lost my friends, lost, my financial income in a heartbeat like that in such a shameful way for someone who should have known better. And many people have made clear to me should have known better. That will I ever recover? I mean, I've recovered, but I have to live with that. And that is, that is not a cakewalk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it is part of your story and part of who you are sitting here before us today. And I'm so grateful that you're willing to share this. And, like you and I were talking about before this episode today, if this conversation saves just one person, saves one life, let alone just saves one person from having to go through the cycle to find out what is not being talked about enough, which is the incredible addictive tendency and how people who should know better, a lot of professionals that I work with, founders, CEOs, um, and I have to say, what I've been learning about is a lot of teens.
Right.
So if you have children, please talk to them about ketamine.
Yes.
In particular, I mean, talk to them about drugs, talk to them, just talk to them first of all. But this is particularly because of with this medicine in particular, these irreversible physical effects.
Yes.
Can you imagine your teenage child having to wear diapers for the rest of their life because they had this experience? So let's just talk honestly. What did so you did some recovery work June to August. It wasn't really going well, and then you said some physical pain that took you finally into detox.
Oh, right.
What was that?
Yeah, so ketamine's so weird because it's supposed to be a dissociative and anesthetic. I have no idea how it operates as an anesthetic because, like, I went for acupuncture once when I was on it, and it hurts worse, like way worse. And the cramps, they call them K cramps, but it's hard to describe. But it's like above, it's not stomach. It's hard to describe, almost like lung, but just below the chest, incredible amounts of pain that only the ketamine will make you feel better. But then, of course, it brings it on. So you're just in a hell cycle. The amount of physical pain and physical discomfort by the end, I really believe my body was fighting for me. But by the end, I couldn't keep it down. I would throw up every time, which I don't fully understand the mechanism of snorting and then throwing up. But I've experienced it many, many, many times. Like within 10 minutes of snorting, my body would just be like, I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. So, I mean, it was incredibly uncomfortable. The worst, the worst.
Yeah. And then what what does what does the road look like from getting into detox to, getting your life back on track?
Yeah, it was titration. I mean, I was a titration person before, and I'm a titration person still. I'm not a black and white person. I'm not a count your clean days person. I'm not a teetotaler. Every day is new. I am not using ketamine right now, but if I were to, that would be okay. I would work with myself on that. I do notice that I notice now and take seriously if I have the idea to do it. Now I
Mm,
know that if I have the idea, then that probably means I'm not okay and I need
mm,
some help. And so
mm,
far beyond calling a dealer and blah, 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 I'm already attending to myself. But
mm.
I'm not scared either. I'm just not scared. I have a very calm relationship with substances now. It's just been like I have terrible days and good days and just trying to trust. I do therapy. I go for a lot of walks. I go to the gym. I've weaned off all the psychiatric medications. I now have a very weird job. I got a job somehow in this crazy market and I work in finance. I'm about to be promoted to VP of finance, if you can believe it, um, at a telecommunications firm. Um, and so, like, it's just like bit by bit, trusting in my body's own innate ability to heal. And a lot of the magic is gone. A lot of the like, oh, this is going to be so great. Let's do this great party. That's kind of like gone. Um, I have a much steadier life and I hope for a little bit more juice. I was always the girl of the juice. And I don't know if I have that much juice right now, but I've gained some steadiness and some clarity, and I think that's good. And I do think that we want to heal, and for whatever reason, my I wanted to be here, and so I'm just going to trust that for now.
Oh, that's so beautiful, Alison. I really loved when you said, when you get a thought of using ketamine, that's your trigger to look at what's behind it
Yeah.
instead of just run towards it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, By the way, yeah, Allison is a very juicy writer, and she writes about her experiences and her philosophies and insights, which is very great writing, great reading. So I'd encourage you, if you're interested, to check out AlisonCrossthwaite.com and sign up for her Remembering newsletter. For those of you who are here with us today, and for those listening on the replay, come on over to psychedelic-revelations.com, where we will have this episode posted and we will have a space for conversation around this episode as well. So the conversation doesn't need to end here, and we will post the links to Allison's website and newsletter there. Um, Allison, as you know well, this is community conversation. I'm hoping that there's some people who are interested in participating today, sharing maybe their own stories or asking their questions, maybe even just coming on and saying hi so we can be in community together. But this is
Can I
such an
say one
important,
thing?
yeah.
I just want to say I'd love to have any of you on my newsletter, and there might be an offering or two for sessions or whatever. I really am not working right now in that capacity. I just want to be really clear. Like, I'm not earning any money by telling my story. I'm not gaining a following at all. Like, this is, in fact, I feel a little bit vulnerable with my employer. I just want to be really, really, really clear because I've a number of times received messages about attention or something like this, and I just want to be really clear that I'm trying to do this in service, and there's yeah, I guess that's
Thank you. I think that's a really important thing to bring into this conversation. And for those of you here joining us and listening, Allison and I had multiple conversations behind the scenes before we got to this point of um, Allison feeling that this could be a safe enough space
okay.
to do the service of sharing her story. So let's just summarize with a couple of things before we open it up. Allison, just like kind of like maybe top 5 things about what would you like people to know about ketamine, and then what would you like people to know about addiction?
Um, about ketamine. I would say that I understand why, as a psychedelic community, we enjoy substances of all kinds. I do have a bit of an explorer in me myself, although no longer when it comes to substances. But I would say just recognize that sharing ketamine with a person is not the same as sharing psilocybin with them. And just because you can use it doesn't mean they can use it. And just know that when you're introducing substances to people, even if it's in like a ceremony or something, we know we can get it. We know, like, so the wrong connection of trauma and drug of choice being ketamine can really have big impact. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm just saying it's very different. So I would like people to know about that. And I think personally, I would love to see us um, on the healer side of things, only doing it in safe medical environments. Um, so I think that is what I would like to say there. There, like something like psilocybin, I feel like is a lifetime's practice if we want to do underground work. I don't think we need anything more than that. Um, about addiction, it's complex. They're not all the same. Nobody sets out to destroy their life. So even though addicts are very hard to love, they're struggling mightily too. And however you can find it in yourself to even have inner compassion, even if a boundary has to be set, I think is wonderful. And yeah, I have so much compassion for the people who struggle far beyond how I've struggled. Now I see it very differently. And I just want them to have every dignity that they deserve.
Mm, yeah, every dignity and all the love.
Yeah.
Oof. Alison, thank you so much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for your bravery bringing this conversation.
It's just so important, so incredibly important. Um, Donna, I know is heading off. Thank you for being here, Donna.
Mm.
And we have, before we actually open it up to our community, I'm just going to ping on my co-host Wendy here, my tech background person, and just give her the opportunity to, be welcomed into the conversation and share anything that might be on her mind too.
Um, yeah, thanks so much for being vulnerable and just sharing your story with us. Um, I I had told Donna I was done because Donna just loved so I just had told Dana when she had thought about this how I personally really wanted this story to be out there too, because this is something that has come up a lot in my personal life. So I live in LA and ketamine is very prominent over here, in at least in world, the worlds that I exist in. A lot of people are Cali sober, where they don't drink alcohol, but they'll do anything else. And so, because ketamine is just easy in general to like, you don't have as many of like the overdose issue. Like it's a thing where you can kind of be out with people. So I think there's a reason why people really gravitate towards it. And I will admit, I have used it recreationally. And I want to share this because I think I could see how I was I was having a struggling with it. I didn't have an addiction issue, but what had happened is like when I would use it, like I went to Burning Man and we used it multiple times at Burning Man because unlike the other psilocybin things, you can actually use it, day after day, right? And so especially in Burning Man, it's really, really, really big out there.
Yeah.
Um, and they I had a situation with someone where I did something unintentionally, you know, and I caused unintentional harm,
Mm.
and I beat myself up over it for like a good 6 months. And I wasn't like using like as they say, like addiction, but like I would like dip back in like every couple months, and then something like, I was like, why am I thinking like this? Like, there was enough time without the ketamine that I could be like, why was I thinking like this? I was like, I think it might be the ketamine because I don't normally think this way. And so, as I always do, I did some testing. Like, I did my own form of research first on myself. And then I started bringing things up with my friends, and I had them check some stuff too. And the people who I talked with, who were, we did this, all of us, we actually all realized that it, in the moment it feels great, right? But there is a certain way you start thinking about things afterwards, and you do not notice it while you're thinking it. And it is very disconcerting, knowing how many people are using it recreationally. And I have watched people go down these like crazy rabbit holes of thoughts that they just wouldn't have even remotely gone to prior to the ketamine. And so I'm glad when you first in the very beginning you said I was thinking things that I had never thought before. I was like, yep, that's exactly it's exactly what I saw. And it is patterned with trauma. Like, I will just say, the people who have more trauma go into a completely different way of thinking than the people who have less trauma. The people who had less, remember the research with my friends and like doing this whole thing. Now, mind you, it was a small cohort, but it was a consistent pattern. It was not even like a little bit of it was just like one or two of us. Every single person who agreed to do this with me and take the breaks and see if it was, every single person had a change in thought and perspective. And it took, depending on how long they had been using it, depended on how long it took for those thoughts to go. And the more they used it, the harder it was to break those thoughts. And so I just wanted to thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here and letting me even speak that out into the world.
Thank you so much. I think it, like, for me personally, to hear that, Wendy, is so helpful because I get alone with my thoughts a lot and I don't have that kind of a group. But yeah, and I have gone back too to even before I started using too much and realized that I just wasn't calculating things the way that I normally would. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Wendy, as well for sharing what your experience has been and the awareness that you've brought into it. So check our thoughts. We're using ketamine. Maybe have an external person know that you're using ketamine
Yes.
to check your thoughts with you. So yeah. All right, my friends, anybody else want to contribute to our conversation today? You are welcome to just, we've got a few of us who can just come off mic, off mute if you'd like to participate and share your own stories or ask your questions.
I see a question here about quantity that I can answer.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like so much. At my tops, I'm gonna say like 3 grams a day, which is a lot to put up your nose. Like a lot, a lot. When I started, I did 60 one time, and that was a MRSA, 60 milligram. So that hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense.
Yeah, I've been listening to various podcasts and shows and one young fellow was saying he was constantly all day long going to the bathroom at school, at high school, and just snorting in the bathroom all day long. It's like there wasn't a moment that I wasn't high on ketamine. So
It's a really weird one. I mean, I could not get enough up my nose. I just believed more was the way.
yeah.
And so like, oh, my nose was just very special. But I mean, it's just, yeah.
Helen, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who don't know, Helen was our guest last week on The Truth About Ketamine Therapy. And I'd love to hear what's on your mind today, Helen, because I know you have personal stories as well.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. I just so acknowledge you, Donna, for just holding this level of conversation. I am just so moved by your courage, Alison, to just be able to be here. And as you said, still be in a relatively vulnerable place in terms of, how you're restoring the fundamentals of your life, and I'm really so hearing that this is a service that is so badly needed. And yeah, as Dana said, I'm a ketamine therapist, um, and so the kind of range of experience that you're describing, everything from, street obtained ketamine to, how we've been supporting people with it, which is in a clinical setting where people go through a whole, medical and therapeutic intake process, and have a therapist, a trained therapist with experience, go through the whole process with them, and have integration as a key part of it, and recognize that integration is actually ongoing. And I'm really hearing that in your healing story, that kind of level of, how you were so divorced from, everyday reality. And so some of the other pieces that really struck me as well, supporting my daughter in a recovery from fentanyl crack addiction, was again the divorce from, reality, and your inflation, of what you're, who you are, what you're here to do, all of that. And some key things that stood out for me is in supporting my daughters and others' experience through recovery, with ketamine being involved in the recovery part of it. Ketamine assisted therapy, and the mode of administration again is injection, so that involves, we all know what that involves, right? Was the love. Yeah. Yeah. When my daughter was in the height of her addiction, we, many times set boundaries. If you do this, then you'll be out. If um, you keep stealing from us, to get, then you'll have to, we'll have to kind of lay this boundary down. And essentially it was the ultimatums. And we, fortunately, being in the medicine community, got support from people with lived experience who'd come through addictions with medicine work. And one of them, he's on next week, Gareth, basically said to us, you keep laying down these ultimatums, then you'll be looking at her ashes on the mantelpiece. And what you said about someone saying to you, like, here's what's going to happen, Alison. Here's where you're at. Here's what's going on. We had to hear that. And it was, just a completely loving act to have to hear the consequences of our laying down the lines and our ultimatums. And things shifted from there. And the other thing that really stood out for me as well, just in terms of supporting her in the journey, is that you go into rehab and recovery places and you get direct lines to, the whole panoply, the whole smorgasbord. And it's so delicate as well, because these institutions are doing the best, but it's so ubiquitous. And and the other thing that really stood out was, and I'm going to just read a piece from, and it came in yesterday. There's no accidents in the universe. It was Phil Wolfson's Ketamine Guidelines version 2. So I'm going to be posting it and it's 121 page PDF. He's generously shared it. In the first version that he did last year, there's a story relayed in there of a professional, a therapist. There was so many elements of your story, Alison, that are reflected in this, psychedelics therapist journey with ketamine addiction. So that's striking. I haven't read version 2, but I did a synopsis of it, and there's a story again in there. I imagine it's the same one or a different one or multiple stories, because again, what you are so profoundly sharing is it cuts across all classes, all demographics, all ages, all levels of education, and all levels of training, like you have described, right? You were in this field supporting people, and yeah, I just hear a lot of humility in that, just and that is so needed as this field continues to expand. But anyway, like I say, I'll post this PDF because it's so relevant, but Phil's developed what he calls a K-12 support program. So it incorporates the 12 steps, but it also is influenced by his Dharmic practice as a long-time Buddhist practitioner. So to me, it's a beautiful combination. And one of the key elements in terms of supporting our daughter is that she was going to go and get it anyway. So we took a harm reduction approach, and she would bring the crack fentanyl cocktail home, and we would do ceremony with her.
Wow.
And that is such a key part, as you described, is uplifting the shame around it. Because if people have an experience where, as you said, I have a relationship with it,
That's right.
wherever I'm at with it, if I'm met and loved there, that's going to shift the direction of the relationship with it.
That's right.
And I can't say how much what your experience, ours and others, is so needed to be heard more widely. But there's, as you are describing, there is an element with ketamine, especially street obtained, where people are encephalating it, that takes people in that direction, very quickly, as you described. And the derealization is absolutely profound. Um, I'm just going to read a section from basically the practice framework that Phil has put together, this K-12 program, which it can be self-directed, it can be done in groups of people going with various levels of lived experience, or supporting others with lived experience coming together, which I think is so needed. But he says that K-dependency often occurs during windows when people are supposed to be developing emotional regulation, capacity for authentic intimacy, and embodied spiritual practice, and that the medicine interrupts this development. Recovery, therefore, isn't going back to where you were, it's completing interrupted growth. This is a big idea, and it's very relevant to the clinical picture of someone who came to ketamine during a vulnerable window. So this is a really key framing of how we need to approach this. And I've said a lot now. I just want to pause for a minute and again honor you in this journey.
Helen, this is very healing experience listening to you and connecting with you in this way. So I'm overcome. I watched you in your episode yesterday, as I prepared. So I feel like I know you like it a little bit, and then to get to hear this part of your story and the story of doing ceremony with your daughter. Like it's almost inconceivable in like what that takes. And I mean, it's just so beautiful. I would have longed for it. Would have longed for that kind of accompaniment. But I feel like you kind of gave it to me with what you said. So, and thank you for this framing. All the circuits are going. I'm gonna look this up. This is so helpful and interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing all of you into this conversation, Helen, and the both sides, you know? Oof. And yeah, Helen, just a reminder, everybody, to hop on over to psychedelic-revelations.com. That's where all our past and upcoming episodes are. And if you join our free community there, it's kind of like a private Facebook for all of us where we can share more conversations, follow-ups to this, and we will put the developmental framework there for everybody, particularly if you're listening to this on the replay. Also, just a little note, in case you didn't know, we have an inner circle community with the Psychedelic Revelations, and that's where monthly you receive one virtual sound bath, one virtual breath work, mystical tea time with Dana and Wendy that lets us bring out some of our more witchier sides, and monthly psychedelic support integration session, a monthly new moon journaling, lots and lots of fun, good stuff, because we really honestly believe in the power of community, particularly in this space. We'd love to see you join us for the next 2 days until the end of February. It is $37 for the year. That's how much you get monthly. After that, it's $37 a month. So just a little plug there, because I think it's really relevant to this conversation to have community and to have spaces where we don't have to wait till Friday to talk, but we can support each other and love on each other and come into ceremony together as well. So yeah, I'm just sitting with that last share still. All right, just opening it back up again. If anybody else has anything they might like to share or ask or contribute.
I'm glad, Helen, my name is Sue Stewart. I'm glad that you, Helen, brought the concept of risk reduction. Alison, of course, that's what you were talking about, the desire to have people not just close you off out of their lives, but to be and sit with you and be present with you through the struggles. And thank you both for everything you've talked about. But I'm a ketamine assisted guide, and in my training, I learned so much about risk reduction, and I feel like it's also not talked about enough. Certainly it's talked. Well, it depends on what part of addiction world. I have a nephew who's been struggling and with alcohol, and he's told me about some of his rehab places and 12-step experiences that really do not have any concept of risk reduction. So I appreciate both of you for bringing that into this conversation. And I too feel very moved right now for everything that's been shared. So thank you. Thank you, Dana and Wendy.
For being here and for sharing and for the work that you do as well and your sensitivity around it. Yeah. We have a few more minutes left if anyone else is wanting to contribute to the conversation.
Alison, sorry, you may have touched on it and I missed it. Did you test the ketamine? Like, did you know if it was pure ketamine?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about being a facilitator. I had access to pharma grade,
Uh,
like the best of the
mhm,
best. I mean, and I think this was a problem because after a while, I cut up, I got advice to tell him not to sell to me. Like I went down the whole, don't let your dealer sell to you, and it's wild. But then I found a dealer in Toronto, and what I used was a quarter of as good, and he's a street dealer, and I don't think I ever would have gotten addicted to what he sold me.
mm,
So that's something to think
interesting.
about as well.
Mhm,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming, Helen, that comes back to the point that ketamine is so easily cut with other substances that when you are purchasing through the street or unknown people, that the risk of it being cut with anything is so high.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Yeah.
And I did fentanyl tests. Like such a weird thing to be a responsible addict. Like what is going on? What am I doing? But anyway.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Hey
do,
guys,
who's
It,
that?
this
Chloe.
is Chloe. Yes,
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone for sharing your story. I've been getting into harm reduction locally where I am, and I guess the only thing I want to share before I forget um, is that I wrote down something that I think is a good indication if someone is struggling and they don't really know if they're struggling is that you can either be holding space or you can be spacey. Um, so I think that if I, had that um, differentiation to kind of ground myself and know, okay, am I holding space for others or am I just being spacey and I, want people to feel like I am. So I hope that resonates in some way. But yeah, thanks so much for opening this discussion up. I think it's an important topic and lots of gratitude for everyone. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you guys. Bye.
yeah, Chloe, thank you for that. It's such an important distinction. Um, because even in my experience, when you don't have anything on board, there is an experience of a contact high. And that is it's again, a delicate space to navigate because again, even though there's not anything on board, to be able to just really stay grounded and centered in terms of the support piece. And as you're saying, Chloe, making the distinction between spacey versus holding space. Yeah, thank you for just sharing that distinction.
Mhm. Alison, anything you wanted to chime in on?
I think it's something that's at the back of my head that I want to say, and I do still carry shame, of course, but it's the phrase that Wendy used, unintentional harm. I caused a lot of unintentional harm, irreparable, basically. And I don't, in my talk about I wish I could have had this or whatever. Yes, agreed. And I just don't want to miss how much harm I caused. And, I on my good days, I can not have shame. In my bad days, I do. But it is really important, I think, when we're thinking about the substances and ketamine in particular, to understand, like, it changes your thinking. And I've heard this from many people in such a way that we might say things in interpersonal relationships that don't know we're on ketamine that changes them and their lives forever. And it's not the type of substance like where I've written about this. It's not the type, sometimes you're just on ketamine, fair, and you're in your K-hole, all the things. But sometimes you think you're fine. Totally fine, especially when you're using it a lot. So you're thinking, you're feeling, you're acting, and you're causing harm sometimes. And this is something I have to live with, and I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want anybody to have to live with that. So as we think about this, and it can feel very like enlivening, like I understand the world and I've got a great idea. And no, you don't actually, you're on ketamine, and this would be fine to be held and explored in a grounded, self-reflective way as a kind of dream or psychedelic journey, but it gets mingled into life, and you're at the grocery store and you think you understand something about the supply chain or whatever, you know. So it's very particular substance in that way, and I'm very sorry for that harm.
Mm. Yeah. For me, this is opening up a whole other conversation too about facilitators and people who work in this space that do have access to all of these medicines. And I mean, I'm in the same boat. I've got anything I want at the end of my fingertips. And like by the grace of God, I'm not tempted. I know which medicines call me, and I know which ones I've worked with and can support other people with. But I'm flabbergasted at what happening around me, actually. So yeah. Ah, all right. Anybody else? I do want to make sure we leave space. Thank you so much for those who've contributed to this conversation. It's so important. So
Hey,
yeah.
it's Sarah.
Oh, go ahead. Where is that? Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, I really did not come on today for ketamine. I came on for Allison. I have very little relationship with ketamine, but I've really never gotten the chance to listen to Allison speak. But I am really inspired by your Substack, girl. Your raw honesty about ketamine, about AI, about yourself, like moves me to the core and actually inspired me to Substack, like to create my own Substack and express myself. So I just wanted to tell you, Allison, that I am really moved by you, and I had the space today to to listen to you speak, and it's really been beautiful. It's been every bit as raw and as honest as your Substack, and I wanted to let you know.
Wow, Sarah. I mean, I've adored you from a distance for years, and the way you express yourself and bring yourself. So to hear this from you, especially at this moment when, quite honestly, I feel useless to the world, is in many ways really, really meaningful. I can't quite process it, and it's kind of seeds, doesn't kind of, it seeds the dream that I have, that I will one day find another way to meaningfully engage. The loss of my vocation as a medicine facilitator is right and is devastating. So thank you. Words don't do it. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and contributing that your beautiful self. And I think like for me, this is so heartwarming because for me, it's all about community and this kind of loving support that we give to each other, particularly when times are tough. So and particularly in this world today, my friends, let's find each other and stick with each other. We need each other so much.
You so much.
And it kind of comes back to what you were saying, Alison, in addiction, like what you really needed was love. That full expression of love. I love you because you're Alison. Doesn't have anything to do with addiction or not addiction. Right? I have a question. This might be for Helen as well as Alison, and anyone else who may contribute as well. I'm very familiar with PIR, Psychedelics in Recovery. I work with a lot of people in that group, and I'm just wondering if you've had experiences with them, and anything that you might like to say about that community, I suppose.
I haven't, but will just done more work in connection with the psychedelics and recovery folks. It's the route I really want to go in, given again the level of in terms of ketamine problematic use and its role, where I got really more familiar with, and I shared this on the last episode, so bear with me, was with the Los Angeles Psychedelic Society Psychedelics in Recovery conference. It was a really good one. And as I said, James Fadden was on there in terms of his experience supporting people. And I was a teacher of yours, Dana and Wendy, and just, the role of microdosing for supporting people in recovery. But what so much of it, in terms of my own experience and what many on there were sharing about, is how do we lift the shame and stigma, which to a good degree, and I learned things in terms of, I thought I knew a lot about Bill Wilson's, the 12-step founder and so forth. And anyway, he was kind of kicked out of his own organization, right? Because actually the vision for it came through belladonna and I think LSD, but it was definitely through these visual experiences through spirit plant medicine. So, albeit to say I won't kind of spend too much on this, because again, as you say, every episode, Dana, there's a whole there's such individual paths, and at the same time there's some universals, and the main one we've talked about here today is love. But love has a spectrum in terms of its expression, and the more we can learn and embody that expression, the more we can support the wide spectrum of experiences that people have with these substances.
Mm-hmm.
That in their essence are us wanting to know and live from our authentic selves.
Yeah.
Which essentially that authenticity is, it's peace and it's happiness. And from those states, we can be really good activists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this to me is activism.
Yes.
This absolutely is activism. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wandered around there, but kind of circle back.
Yeah.
But I think there is so much potential with that approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Alison?
Yeah, I don't have any experience with psychedelics in recovery. I know intuitively in my body I don't need any more psychedelics.
Yeah.
We'll find out when or if, but let's just say no. But I want to echo Helen's talk of activism. I continue to believe that whether it's through ingesting medicine or the medicine of the earth and the medicine of each other and the medicine of our animal, that healing, becoming present, connecting to who we are in our multitude colorful ways is the way forward and is the hope. And this is like the most important thing, and that we can be activists in a million ways, and we need to be. And so yes.
Yeah, thank you both. And yeah, if you're listening to this and curious, PIR, Psychedelics in Recovery, it's a global community. And it's another resource. We did have Anne Rossignol, who is a spokesperson for PIR. She was a guest on our show, so you can go again to psychedelic-revelations.com and find her past episode to learn more about psychedelics in recovery. If you are listening to this and you are struggling with addiction of any kind yourself, it's one more resource. And please just remember that you are loved. And if you are a person who's supporting another person with addiction, substance use issues, you are loved too. And we welcome all of you. I feel really emotional.
Wish we were all in the same room.
I know, group hug.
Like hugs.
Alison, before we head off for today, is there anything else that we didn't get a chance to talk about that might be on your heart or on your mind?
Okay, I'm going to say this little piece. So yes, ketamine accessed the fault lines that were in me. And in my Western psychotherapeutic training, very individualistic, of course. But as we're coming to really see in 2026, trauma is systemic. And we are starting to speak things that have not been spoken. Deep, deep, deep things. And so I do feel just a little bit of tingling hope sometimes in rooms like this, that even more can be spoken, even more can come to the surface, because it is the things that are in the headlines that are the same things that we're all experiencing on all the different ways, and all these substances, even though my experience was an addiction, and it did root out. There is a developmental arc to my personal work, and I pray that it goes somewhere now, but that's a whole nother existential, but it has been doing very important things in my life, and I guess it's a little jumbled, but I feel the urgency of our moment so incredibly deeply, and I love the heart connection here, and I do believe in the developmental arc, and I believe in the symbolic arc, and I have some faith. So thank you all so much for making this I was prepared for anything, right? You have to be prepared for anything, but actually this was so healing for me. So thank you all so much. I have so much respect for each of you and your work, and this is wonderful.
Thank you, Alison. And yeah, I mean, I'll bring to the surface here that Alison and I shared, there was a little bit of backlash about even having this episode from people who are working in the ketamine world, who felt that by even having this discussion, we were demonizing it and taking hope away from people who could be helped by this. So Alison and I were prepared, and this is the place to bring those conversations. Please don't hide behind social media or hide behind anonymous posting. Come here. We have a forum. We want all the sides of the story. We want honesty and truth. So just encourage you to join us in the future, and let's just put it all out on the table. Yeah. We're here for it, right? Sarah, who's here, she was the one who gave us our tagline, "We go there," because we're not afraid to have these conversations.
So important. So
But what I can say is, I don't know about for you guys, but for me, this has been a very emotional episode. Heavy with light. There is a lot of light and a lot of love here, but also heavy. And I encourage you all to take care of yourselves after this episode, if you're here joining us, or if you are listening afterwards. There's all sorts of ways you can take care of yourself. And sometimes for me, after something like this, I actually go and listen to Taylor Swift and shake it off, like literally shake it off. So whatever works for you, whatever floats your boat, take care of yourselves and come over to psychedelic-revelations.com, join our inner circle to be part of the more intimate community, or just join the free community and have ongoing conversations. Be supported. You're loved. Yeah. Wendy, anything from you before we kind of wrap up?
I mean, just we've got some other things lined up.
Yes.
So next week we have mystical tea time, and we were going to be talking. So I'm excited. So last week Dana brought the year of the horse, and this week or last month this month I'm going to be talking about Ostara and the spring equinox, and I'm going to guide us through an EFT tapping exercise. And so bring your journals, get ready to like move some thoughts in there. So I'm excited for this upcoming week. And then do you want to talk about the next week with intersection of and psychedelics?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're having Dana and Wendy's mystical tea time once a month on the Fridays that we usually have podcasts. So come and join our inner circle for get your ceremony on. And and then after that we have a fellow named Rev Human joining us. We're going to be talking about AI in psychedelic spaces. I see Alison's eyes light up over there. Oh, and Helen's too, of course. How could I forget? Oh my gosh. Okay, see you ladies in a couple of weeks, if not before. Then we are going to have another episode on Canna. We haven't talked about that for a while. And that is with Ryan from Hearthstone Collective. And then we have Gareth Moxie is joining us at the end of the month on healing addiction with ibogaine. So a great follow-up to this conversation. We have psychedelic cannabis therapy coming up with Dr. Alaya Offman. And one thing that one of our community members pointed out to me today is like in our early days, in the 2021, 22 days, we had quite a few episodes around MDMA. But since we've been having our episodes up on Spotify and YouTube, our replays, we don't have anything. So I think we're going to, create a little focus around MDMA. And on that, this is how we come up with our episode conversations is, what do people want to hear about and talk about? So if there's something that you really want to hear about or that you really want to talk about, or someone that you'd really love to see and hear on Psychedelic Revelations, please reach out to us. We would love to know. You can find us over in our community. With that, Wendy, why don't you take us off before we head off into our weekends?
All right. I am inviting everybody who is in the audience, I still say it that way, from our clubhouse days, who is off mic and off camera. You can follow along with us, but everyone who wants to join us, I invite you to unmic right now, and let's all take a big collective deep breath in together. And now let's sigh, growl, or shake it out, or all of the above.
And with the love and the support of all of us behind you, may you all go off and